Hello, hi. My name is Arturo Ramos, and I work for the County Library. And today we're going to be going over Dungeons and Dragons. This game is really fun. It's not like a regular tabletop game as people think it might be or perceive it as. It's more of a hybrid game. It's tabletops, like dice rolls and everything that are needed, but it's mainly storytelling. It's exactly how well you can create a scenario in the story. Today we're going to be going over kind of the basic minimum things you might need if you want to get started on it, the role of a dungeon master, and then creating your character. And that's pretty much it. So let's get started. So the first getting started in supplies, things that we will be needing. I put player handbook and the monster manual down. If it's your first time, I highly recommend that you read them. You don't necessarily need them when you play the game, but I recommend reading them because then you get a basic understanding of how the players are going to be run, how the game is going to be run, and how the monsters play out when they do actually do some fighting in the game. With the monster manual and the player handbook, it's showing you kind of like the basic rules of common sense of the character when you're running the game to how well they fight against monsters and the monsters that are created if you're in control. When it comes down to it, because the way the game is played is that it's an open scenario, so the players don't take turns per se. They're all telling their part of the story of what their character is doing, and telling it to one main person who's like the referee of the game, which is the game master or the dungeon master, and then it's changing the scenarios according to the choices that they're making or the character is doing. Then it goes into turn-based once you get into combat, and then that's why I highly recommend you make sure to read any of these books before you get started. Polyhedral dice, as you can see on the top image on the top above me. Polyhedral dice are basically dice that have the different number-sided die. So we can have a regular 6-sided die, 20-sided die. You can have a 3-sided die. Or an 8-sided die. The reason with that is because the polyhedral dice are rolled for the different stats or scenarios in the game. So for instance, if you have a ogre that you're fighting, you wouldn't want to use a low 3-sided dice to do some damage. If he has 100 health and you're trying to take him down, you would use a 10-sided die to do a moderate amount of damage, depending on your character stats and everything like that. Also, I added an image right behind me of a character sheet. This is a character sheet that will be either filled out. Some people use notebooks if they understand the basics of what the character needs. It can go from weapon specializations to proficiency and to blacksmithing and things like that. But all these, you would fill that. You can also get them on your phone. I've seen people use them on their phone or just fill it on a notebook. But you can go online and just print out a free copy of these as well. But you will be needing that for a character sheet so you can have the basic understanding and stats of your character at that time. Dungeon Masters is kind of like one of the biggest role in the game. There's always going to be a Dungeon Master whenever you started the game. They're in charge of the adventures, they lead the story, and they're the referee. They determine the results of the player's actions and narrates their experience. And they're in charge of creating all the monsters that the scenario, what happens in the scenario. So they're in charge of everything that goes on. They're the ones telling the story. You can't just say, "Oh, I did this." It's more along the lines of, "Oh, hey, I'm gonna do damage to this monster with my sword," and then he creates a scenario of how you did that damage, how the monster took the damage, and how it's gonna proceed from that point. So next we're gonna go over like characters and character races. Now, when you're creating your character, this is one of the biggest things a lot of people enjoy is that they can make their character in any way that you like. I just showed a few examples here. There is many more. But human, elf, dwarf, halfling, gnomes, and half-orcs, those are kind of like the basic. There's a lot more than that. There's even, half human, half dragon people in here as well. But what happens is each one of these races go into their own like passive traits as a race. So like a dwarf will be really good at blacksmithing, or they're not great with magic, but they're really good with like technology, so engineering and things like that, and being very stubborn. Whereas if you use a half orc who's really good with close range combat, or they are going to be very proficient in all different types of weaponry. So in the game, you know, it's just depending on what you're kind of pursuing, and the manuals as well show you kind of like a basic understanding of what their people of race usually use, or usually classes they usually do. But like I said, it's open. You could be whatever you'd like when it comes to races and everything like that. After you choose your race, you're going to be choosing your character class. Now, character class is kind of the job that you're going to be doing in the party. What you're going to be doing, you have to really think what you're going to do, what's your key that makes you a key part in the story. From fighter, wizard, cleric, rogue, and ranger. There's many more than that. I just showed a small amount as well because there was just so much. And each one of these classes have subclasses. So, like for instance, a cleric. A cleric are basically a really high-powered priest. They worship the light. They're all about doing what's right, what's good, and they use that holy light magic to bless themselves to fight, you know, monsters and things like that, in pursuit of the light. The problem is they do have subclasses, so you could be an Oathbreaker where you don't swear to the light or more, you use the light in greedy ways. Like, there's so many things you can do when it comes down to classes. The main thing, though, when you do create your classes and what you're going to be proficient as and what you're going to be doing as a role, it comes down to your stats. And that's exactly what we're going to be going over right now. We also have stats from strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Now, to give you a basic rundown of what everyone does, we have strength, which is going to be how strong you are, whereas wisdom, it could be from willpower or constitution, or analyzing things. Constitution is kind of like your health. Dexterity, we got agility, how well you can balance things. Intelligence is how well you can learn, and charisma is kind of like how well you can lead people or persuade people into doing things. But those are like the basic runs of your character stats. When it comes down to it, you also you don't want to overpower your character. The point of the game is to be an adventurer and to build your character slowly. And of course, you can also do it at random too with the dice roll. You can roll dice to kind of get different random stats. But so this is the reference sites that I do have. If you wanted to get more into the lore of it and make new scenarios being a dungeon master, we do have the fiction books that I listed here above, the player handbook and the monster manual, and the websites that you can go to actually either check them out on our Overdrive site or the Yuma County catalog website as well. But thank you so much for coming in today or watching the video. Have a nice day.